Hello, everyone, and good morning, and welcome as you're trickling in to join us, whether you're on Substack, YouTube, or TikTok. It's good to see all of you. Welcome to another dialogue. Today, we're going to be talking about a state and its people with a twist. So make sure you are sticking around for the whole time because it's going to be a really fun discussion today. But first and foremost, I'm joined by my host, John Oliver, Canadian composer, good friend of mine, excellent dialogue companion, here to have another awesome discussion. But before we go any farther, John, it's been a bit. How are you doing?
I'm doing fairly well, considering that, our two nations are at war.
Yes, that's right. Yes, not but I have to say, I just the more we go to war with Canada, the more I love my Canadian neighbors. That's kind of how it is. I admire the pushback against the tyranny that's being levied against me and
Yeah,
my people. I envy it almost. I admire it and I envy it because I wish we could push back as effectively as maybe Canada is pushing back. But nonetheless, I'm proud of Canada, despite obviously some of the things that I'm hearing maybe Canadians are less than pleased as of late, and that's one of the things I wanted to kind of get your opinion on, John, with this
yeah,
whole trade war and the things
yeah,
going on like that, because it's important we discuss a state, and that being the United States government or the Carney premiership. So, you know, I would say that this is going to be a good discussion, and we're going to switch gears here. But as we kind of get started, John, if you wouldn't mind giving me a quick update on kind of what's happened between the United States and Canada in the last couple of weeks with this trade war from a Canadian perspective,
yeah,
um, that'd be
yeah.
great.
Sure. I just also want to start by saying that as we Canadians observe your appreciation of what's going on in our country, we appreciate the number of people, the vast number of people who express their condolences to us as Canadians about what's going on.
Yeah.
Just on a regular basis, people are apologizing for this trade war and so on. America's waking up to the absolute devastation that this causes the people of both of our countries.
Yeah.
And so we're united in our resistance to this bizarre summoning up by President Trump of some ancient idea that tariffs are some kind of good economic policy when it's never been proven to be the case.
Yeah.
Anyway, so up here, um, you know, and I will say that this is kind of a theme on the left in general, is that um, rapid economic growth and the expansion of corporate power is not something that we on the left really have much fondness for, let's say.
Yeah.
And one of the really difficult things that we have to swallow is the idea that Trump has forced this notion of rapid development of fossil fuel industries as some kind of essential necessary thing, where everybody on the left has been saying, well, renewables is the future and the fossil fuel industry is dying and should die, and the stuff
Should
should
be
be
allowed to
left
die.
in the ground. We've
Yeah.
been saying this for over a decade. Leave it in the ground and use alternative energy sources. So what's been bothering people about Carney in Canada is that he is short-circuiting environmental assessments for mining projects, fossil fuel projects, LNG projects. He's starting to fast track things,
Mm.
which means uh, reduce the time for environmental assessment, and people are worried that these environmental assessments will just simply be cast aside. And also that Indigenous consultation will be cast aside.
Yeah.
And that's what people are worried about in this, Build Canada Strong thing.
You know,
Yeah,
that makes me think of, it kind of sounds to me like I understand, right, from a logistical perspective, what Carney is trying to do. It's pretty transparent.
yeah,
The world needs a Western alternative to China. In a lot of ways, there's some things that can't be done, but Canada has the potential to fill a great many needs simultaneously.
yeah, and that's true.
Um, but but to your point, at the cost of its own people, you start to employ a China model. And that model in China has resulted in at least three of their four major rivers being effectively a cancer source
Right.
for the people who live along them. Of course, this isn't something that affects the people uh, downstream in these areas where they're able to treat and filter that water more. It's the people who are the indigenous people or the people who live in those areas, that work in those areas, that suffer. And that, I think, is, correct me if I'm kind of wrong, but I think the concern I'm picking up here is that the cost, um, and
Yeah,
is greater. In short term, yeah, short, this is a good comment. Bingo. Short term greedy is dangerous. Yes, just because there's no LNG. And if you want to fast track this process, Mr. Carney, you're a banker. You understand that these projects aren't going to be done for 2, 3, 4 years, even if you fast track it. So when we're supposed to be moving in the other direction, instead you're fast tracking the past. So that would be my question to Mr. Carney is, as a person who's grounded in logic, it seems to me like you're not making a decision that's future oriented. And that was his whole thing,
yeah,
is it was for the future.
yeah,
But
yeah.
you want to bankroll the past. I can see these are the things that make Americans very angry. What they're doing with our public land, what
Right.
they're doing with these mines that have been shut down. And once you poison the land, I was thinking this morning, once you rape the land, you can't unrape it,
Yeah,
right? It's just like a person. If a woman gets assaulted, if a man gets assaulted, but women mostly get assaulted, and we should say that outright, not to undermine what happens to men, but if a woman gets assaulted, she doesn't get to just forget that happened. She
right.
has to go to therapy. She has to live with that. She has to grow and unnecessarily grow past that, because it shouldn't have happened to begin with. But the land isn't even it's a lifetime in and of its own, just like a person.
Yeah,
And
but
that's where I think
yeah,
I
go ahead.
no, I was going to say that's just my concern in general for the people of Canada, for the people of the US, for the people of China, for the
Right.
people of all over the world,
Yeah.
is that, short-term gains result in long-term pain and the poisoning of the land.
Right. And it takes the remediation is possible, but the cost to society is huge when
Yeah.
these corporations get away with murder, basically, in a metaphorical sense, in the mines that they open, and then they leave these tail ponds all over the place, and so on. We just can't afford as a society to allow corporations to continue to rape us, because that's what they do when they get grants to explore, and they get little environmental assessment. They get away with all sorts of things. They get fined, and they just, oh well, fine, it's just part of our business. That's just a business expense. And so they really don't care about the environment in which they operate, but they should. I mean, that's what governments are for. They're to protect the people and to protect the interests of the people. And my goodness, if food and water isn't important for people, then what is? I mean, it doesn't
Dude,
make
I
any
know.
sense.
If
It doesn't make
water's
any
not
sense.
important when your body's 80% water, what is important?
Right. You can't privatize my body. And that's what they think they can do. The corporations think they can privatize the requirements of my body, which are, food, water, air. Obviously, those things should be protected, and for everybody. And that's, yeah. So that's what the issue is with Carney pushing all this stuff forward, saying, the world has what Canada, uh, the world needs what Canada has. to offer. Right. Okay. But the world is, except in the United States, the world is going towards clean energy and is really trying to solve the problem. And here is the biggest economy in the world trying to destroy and exacerbate the problem, right?
Why would you not incentivize all of those scientists who are fleeing the United States because of brain drain to come to Canada and then build clean energy there?
Yeah.
Right. I think that well, let me ask you this question. What are Canadians doing to push back? What are you seeing in terms of pushback? How are Canadians resisting? Are they going to these sites and protesting? Are they filing petitions? What does that look like in Canada?
Well, yeah, I mean, there are always activists who are on these issues. We've had, in Vancouver, demonstrations against AI data centers. So there are people who are, actively, critiquing the Carney government. But when you are thrown into a situation where the public is convinced, quite rightly so, that we're in a crisis and that we have to do crisis management and that it's necessary, then it becomes the same, sort of narrative as, it's a war and it's a war effort, right? So the war effort means everybody has to get on side with what the leader is saying we need to do to fight the war. And so once you end up with this kind of language, then it becomes hard to critique the government because people will just say, oh, but we need to do this or we won't survive. It's a question of survival. And so when you say, as an answer to them, you say, well, it's also a question of survival that if the main river flowing through Vancouver gets polluted and all of the salmon die, then we don't have that source of food. Isn't that important?
Yeah, I mean,
That's a matter of survival as well, right?
yes. Well, and I think that's the thing, I'm sure in the back of your head as you were saying that, because I know I was thinking it's what they always say, right? Like it's
Right.
always a war, it's always an emergency. That's the best time to do anything is that, oh, we have to do it now. It's much easier to start something than it is to undo it. Um,
Right.
and um, I will say that at least my concern with Canada always has been corporate fascism, and it's been something Canadians have been fighting, I think, for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
American companies trying to sneak into Canada because it does have an abundance of resources they would like to despoil. And so we see that the people of Canada are disagreeing with the state and its people. And that's kind of where we want to take this today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are not the same thing.
Right.
Just like the American people and the American state, by and large, don't agree with what's going on.
Right.
And so you can see that because of our primary elections. You have Abdul Al Sayed,
Right.
who just got a huge nomination. Going to be, they're talking about him being the first Muslim president. Freaking cool, right? I mean, I think we had Obama the last time we did this shit. I would not be surprised to see a Muslim man. Unfortunately, I'd love it to be a woman. I've wanted a woman president my entire life. I've been telling since I was 16 and old enough to understand politics. I've been saying Angie Nixon in Florida, right? Black woman for the Senate in Florida. That's crazy just to say that, right?
Yeah.
And she's a democratic socialist who is a black woman for the Senate primary in Florida. Wild. And so things like that's the people of Florida saying we don't agree with the state. We don't agree with our state government, right? Because what they're voting for the federal government. And that's where I think we can start to see that these little differences, and I think they're important differences, because if we can draw this difference, we can start to say that a state exists because of the people.
Right.
It exists at the what's the word?
Behest.
Yes, thank you. The behest of the people, right? And so we can also see this kind of collective power in the animal kingdom. And so what we're going to talk about today are some animals we think are cool, and kind of what we can learn from them about how the people can try and maybe see what the animal kingdom does, how they organize themselves, and maybe there's an interesting juxtaposition there.
Right.
There's a better comment. The state serves at the pleasure of the people,
Yeah, that's
right?
a good
I
expression
think
as
that's a
well.
good one too.
Yeah.
So
So
I would,
can I just jump in here for a
yeah,
second?
I was going to say, I want to pass you the ball really quick.
Yeah, I just want to point out that one of the ideas that is very common and socially expected, I would say, is that we go down a kind of granular statistical analysis of people's uh, age, religion, gender, so on and so forth. And all I can say is that as people continue to uh, buy into the idea that we are all different based on our religion and our age and our gender, our sex, our sexuality, and all of these different things that is just being human,
Yep.
as long as we continue to be convinced that we need to position ourselves as individuals in relation to all of these categories, I think we are just admitting defeat before we begin. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because there's a picture going around that I forwarded on Substack of Putin and Netanyahu and Trump. And
They actually were all in one place.
well, no, it's a picture of the three of them
I
saying, and the cut line is that these um, white boomers, white male boomers, are responsible for all this shit. And the comments that are nonstop since I posted it, I don't know, over a week ago, is people saying, hey, why do you have to say boomers? Why do you have to blame it on a generation? These are evil people. And there are evil people in every generation. And so this idea to blame it on the boomers is very, very common right now. And this is only dividing people, and it is making it very difficult for people to come together and resist the actual cause of our problem right now. Okay, so I just wanted to mention that because, you know, El Said is a great politician because he cares what happens in Michigan and because he's talking about people and their food and their prices, and he's talking about what the people need. And the fact that he's Muslim is not really consequential.
Irrelevant,
It's
entirely
irrelevant.
irrelevant.
It doesn't matter if he's a Muslim first president. It just doesn't matter.
You know,
And
you're
as
right. I
and
think I
you know
think I
what I'm
want to go
saying?
back and I want to say it does. I want to highlight it. He would be the first Muslim president. It is significant, but also I don't want to overemphasize because I think it's important to state it because of how short-sighted and small-minded things have been.
Yeah,
But
for
it's
that reason
also, to
only.
your point, entirely irrelevant because he wants to serve people, serve at their pleasure. Um, you know, and that's the difference.
Yeah, yeah. So you know, as we go into, I think we should actually start with your favorite, which is the ant colony. And before we get into it, I know it's your favorite, Shane, and I like it too. But one of the first things I want to say about the ant colony is there are no different religions
No,
in
this is
an
a
ant
great
colony.
point. At least not that we're aware of. And it
Yeah,
doesn't seem, if there is a religion, then it doesn't stop them from being remarkable
right.
in just about everything that they do.
Correct. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and and you know, there's boomer ants, right? There's
Right.
older ants, there's younger ants. Ants live a long time. Ants are one of those things that there's so much interesting nature in the world, and I have a tendency to I love to take care of things. We have a little hog-nosed snake. We have a rattlesnake. He's humongous. I mean, he's 4 feet now. You know, and he's kind of a jerk, but we love him because he's our rattlesnake. You know, I got a betta fish the other day because I had fish as a kid. So I said, I want a little betta fish to take care of. And then, of course, I've got my 2 dogs, my cat, and my ant colonies. So, you know, there's just so much to learn just watching our animals, watching the things that nature has out and around us. And ants, like you said at the beginning of the show,
So go for it.
yeah, we'll
Tell us
start
about
with the
the ant.
video. We'll start with the video that I have because I think that this is just such a good example of how ants, and many of you have probably seen this video, but I want to go ahead and play it for you anyway. It's pretty, maybe actually, I don't know if you have. I've seen it a couple times, but it's about fire ants who, ironically, are a very invasive species where I am, but this highlights just how remarkable the eusociality is in ants and what it can really do.
This fire ant has reached the edge of her known world. Her way forward has now become blocked by the rising waters. She's one of many, and in a few minutes their underground home will be submerged. Forced to evacuate, workers and soldiers try to save the larval young. As their nest floods, the colony seems to be doomed. But from chaos comes order. The fire ants band together, each locking legs with its neighbours. They're building a living raft. Each ant is covered in fine hairs that trap air against its body. As the raft forms, this air creates a cushion for them all to float on. This is the power of the colony. By working together, they've become unsinkable. And no one gets left behind. Pulled from the shallows, the colony is now at the mercy of the flood. Holding tight to the larvae and keeping their queen hidden at the centre of the raft, the colony drifts into deeper water. Where they're vulnerable to fish that now swim through the flooded forest. Those that lose their grip must get back to the safety of the raft.
So, first of all, I mean...
Hey, check that out. 6 orca. The next video is going to be the next thing we're going to talk about. That's hilarious. That's pretty incredible video. I really like that. That's a remarkable thing to see.
Yeah, I mean, and so... Ironically, I just love this about ants. They put all the men on the bottom. They did pretty much evolve men out of the process, other than reproduction in nature. I don't know why. But regardless, I think that that's kind of a fun fact, considering that men are so mean these days, and me and John are trying to change that by coming out here and speaking out against that stuff. But for the time being, I would say the vast majority of men should go on the bottom of the raft if they meet certain qualifications, which are pretty easy to meet these days. But ants are so cool, and what we just saw is question, because any females can become secondary or new colony queens, right? Well, it depends on the species, but actually it's usually just the queen herself. There are species that can basically evolve into laying eggs, but it's generally more rare. But there's all kinds of different ants. You've got, queen colonies that have multiple queens. You've got colonies that have a single queen. A queen can live upwards of 20 years in some cases. I mean,
Right.
they're individuals. They have their own way of doing things. I have two colonies of the same species that I got at the same time that I keep side by side, and the way they do things couldn't be more different. The conditions are exactly the same. And so
You have 2 colonies?
I have 4 personally.
4 ant colonies.
Yes. They're very small. When you say it's a colony, it's a community. And this kind of leads us into the point we want to start talking about is an ant colony starts very small. A lot of ants, particularly those that I keep, are native to California. So I keep my local ant species.
Yeah.
They are by and large claustral, which means the queen goes underground. She's going to dig her chamber and she'll be there for many months. And she lays her first eggs, her brood, gets everything started with her own wing muscles, and she never comes out. So the first thing about these ants, when you see this kind of behavior, is it starts with one person, right? So it starts with an individual. But the thing about ants is it starts with the individual, but it very rapidly becomes about the group. Now,
Right.
yes, the queen is the most important, but the queen is also the focus or the linchpin of the community. The queen enables the community, right?
Right.
So in this case, we saw all of these ants literally take their queen, the heart of their community, which can be anything if we want to draw an analogy here, whatever that may be. And they, at cost to themselves, it's not just the male elites that are, on the bottom. Majority of the time, if they're not breeding, it's just going to be workers. And so some of them will get eaten by fish. Some of them will drown. Some of them will do lots of things. But the collective, the eusociality of that is that ultimately they just want their colony to succeed, to exist, and to have the best chance to continue to make its own queens that it can then send out into the world and continue that cycle. So that is the success of a colony is dependent on how well they can build their raft. That is entirely the idea. And some are better than others. Some could collectively work together better than others. It's a great documentary. I encourage you guys to watch it. It's called Ant Mountain, I believe. And it's about these ants that live in the, I think it's one of the Nordic states up there. But they talk about how these ants are from different colonies and work together. And how suddenly when those ants work together, they have a mountain. A mountain is the space that they control, as opposed to just the fields. And if you go 5 kilometers the other direction, those colonies don't work together and they're not as successful. So you can always grow your community. And the more you social, the more you want to see your community thrive. And that doesn't mean at the sacrifice of your own life. Like certain things that ants do won't work for humans, but there's a lot of things they do that they do show us that if we listened to what these examples in nature are for success, and I would argue that ants might be short of bacterias and fungus, one of the most successful species on Earth because of their ability to work together,
Right.
And address these complex problems like flooding. Right? Even a beehive, bees aren't going to be able to. If there's a major flood, they're eusocial, but that doesn't necessarily mean they are capable of building a raft. Just the way that ants are able to. One of the species I keep, they dig their nests on average 16 feet into the ground. 16 feet,
Wow.
which is freaking 3 of me.
Right.
Remarkable. So what they can do, contrary to their size, is what is the most fascinating. And that I do kind of want to say, and to say a state and its people, the ant colony has managed to make the state, the collective, the people, and it reflects the people. It reflects the success of the state is a reflection of everybody's success. So what they can do comes from their community. Exactly.
Right.
So John, I mean, I just want to kind of kick it over to you. What are your thoughts? I don't want to ramble about ants too long because we'll have no show left.
Yeah, right. So first of all, I think for our audience, and also for me, because I've never heard the term eusocial before. What does eusocial mean?
It just means that they don't prioritize their individuality, their individual self over the collective. So if they're under attack by a rival colony, they will send 20 soldiers to slow them down, and those soldiers won't stop to think, oh, well, I'm going to die. They'll think, we need to make sure that this colony that we've all collectively built is going to continue. Whereas if you are running, say, with the town guard and you're trying to evacuate your village, you say, hey, I need 5 of the militia to go and sell themselves dearly. You're not going to have 5 people. You're not guaranteed to have 5 people be like, well, yep, that's me. I'm going. And because of that, some of the villagers may not make it out because while they squabble about who's going, that could be the time they need.
Well, it's interesting because it used to be the case, if you think back 100 years, when World War I happened, citizens of various nations offered up their services. They enlisted enthusiastically. But that was before let's think of this as the colony, right? So let's just go back to the individual ants in the colony signing up. They're going to sign up.
Great analogy. Yep. Okay. Sign me up.
Sign me up. I'm going to defend the nation. Yes. But then when we discovered, mainly after World War II, and as the military industrial complex started to develop, then people started to understand that maybe they were not going to Vietnam to, fight communism, but maybe there was something else going on there. That was supposedly what it was about, but was there anything else going on there, like an industry making a lot of money off of each soldier that went to Vietnam? Yeah. And when corporatism started to become the actual reason that you were going to war, people said, wait a minute, I'm not defending my colony now. I'm defending the profits of this external entity, which is external to me because it doesn't do me any good. This corporation makes money for itself and it's not giving back to society. So why am I enlisting in the army to basically go be a police force to protect corporatism elsewhere in the world? And so once that little, thing was revealed and people started to understand that, and that was mainly around the time of the Vietnam War that this became something that people became aware of, then they say, okay, well, I'm not going to do it anymore. Because now there's this entity called corporatism that is not in the interests of the colony, which is us.
Yeah, we're a colony. We're all one colony. Your country has a choice. Your neighborhood has a choice. Your city has a choice. You can look at yourselves as a colony. And if you look at yourself as a colony, there's an advantage. You know that the person next to you has your back.
Right.
You know that if another entity rolls up on you, right, attacks your village, you know that you can walk out your door and take a stand and you won't be alone. That
Yeah.
is, I think, one of the biggest barriers right now, particularly in the United States,
Right.
to effective resistance, is that people don't feel like they are gonna have someone's gonna have their back. I personally still have, if I felt like I could go out and really participate and stand up against these data centers and these cameras and things like that, and that I would have, a community at my back that I wouldn't be a prime target to make an example of.
Right.
But right now, there's a lot of people who don't want to be the example, which is fair, right? You don't like it, an ant is not just going to go and, I mean, honestly, they probably would because they've achieved eusociality. But an ant is not going to run out per se and just risk it all if there's no other motivation to do that, right? So like if they're cut off from the colony, they're going to try and be more cautious. They're more interested in preserving their own life in this case, right? And we don't want to be talking in terms of life and death. That's kind of just nature as a whole. But in terms of our community's success, a comment here. You mean like when me the day over a dozen ice whizzed by as I was filming them, right? Like that
Correct.
is one of those things where all they have to do is decide, oh, they're by themselves. Let's go beat the crap out of them and say they were resisting, right? Like no, that's the fear, and that's where a eusocial community will win every time.
Yeah,
Because
and that's what they fear. That's what the U.S. government fears, is that people will decide that they have collective power, and that's what's been happening in Minneapolis. Now you have whole neighborhoods coming out and chasing ICE out of the neighborhood. And people are willing to take that risk for the collective good because they understand that they need to have their neighbors back, because together they're protecting each member of the community. So that's why people are honking their horns and creating disturbances to let the neighborhood know that ICE is there. That's why there are now social media accounts where you can report ICE, and I see them in my feed, and I'm not even in the US, right? But that kind of collective action is the good byproduct of the evil that's going on right now in the United States.
it's moving us towards that, I think.
Yeah, and it really has to accelerate over the next 10 weeks so that when the midterms come, it's a blue wave that's just massive, really, really massive. And to get back to the Canada-US thing and this trade negotiation that fell apart, that Carney did not walk off in a huff. No, he simply made a calculated decision about short-term pain for long-term gain. And in my view, he did this not only for Canada, but he did this for the United States, because he understands one thing, and that is that tariffs are bad for everybody. And he's going to implement them anyway because he's not going to back down. And he's going to make it clear to everybody, Canadians and Americans alike, that 50% tariffs are just going to be bad for everybody. Yeah. And he knows that the midterms are coming and that his decision to walk away just makes things worse for Americans and Canadians. But here's the difference. What has he done in the last few days? He said, this is going to be tough on us. These tariffs are going to be tough on us. So the federal government is going to establish a fund of, I can't remember the number, but it's billions of dollars to help out the businesses that are going to be hurt by the tariffs.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So he's not just imposing pain willy-nilly like Trump is. He understands that this is going to cause pain, and he's willing to invest public money, which is, of course, our money, to redistribute the money so that those who are going to suffer the worst can get some relief, which is an example of collective action. It's an example of the government saying, okay, we're in a crisis here. These businesses are going to really suffer from these tariffs. And so we're going to take our tax base, which everybody contributes to, and we're going to redistribute that money so that the people who are suffering the most are going to get the help. Now, that's called socialism, evil socialism. You know, it's also, in Christianity, if you're a Christian, called, love thy neighbor and just be a good person, right? And so just be a good person is kind of good and goes like, you don't have to be religious to just say, be a good person. And here's what you need to do to be a good person. Kind of duh, right?
Yeah.
So well, that's the difference.
Yeah. And even like you said, I mean, it's like ants don't have a religion, or they do. I mean, I don't know. I know ants talk, and like it's like something like Morse code. They tap their legs at different basically speeds.
Right.
And they obviously they pick up everything's vibrations. So my theory is that you can see ants have a conversation because they'll all stand in one place and everybody's tapping their legs in different rhythms. So yeah, sometimes they like music too. It's very interesting. But there's an individual, right? We know that there's an individual in this kind of situation. So we know that individuals can be part of a collective good. Right. And so that's socialism. That's what Carney is doing. That's the colony equally distributing resources to best support everybody, because there is value in having a healthy workforce, right? Like the mental health aspect is something that, and I've talked to my partner about this, is that mental health is something that can also degrade community, in the sense that the 40-hour work week was built on the idea of manufacturing. And that's not a job where you're using your brain 8 hours a day. And the impact on mental health of doing that is it's becoming very obvious. Just you look around the offices of these agencies, whether it's tech or e-commerce or coding, whatever it is, these very high intensity mentally stimulating jobs, these people tend to become withdrawn, isolated, they get depressed, they're exhausted, and that deprives them of the ability to really put that energy back into a community, because it's more about individual productivity than it is towards a extractive entity than a collective benefit. And so
are you talking about working in the tech sector?
Tech, advertisement, e-commerce, any of these jobs where you're staring at a computer all day.
Right.
Like we do this show, and you're probably more tired after doing this show than a day where you don't, because we have to come up here and we have to talk and it's exercise. Right. Now imagine you do this all day for 8 hours.
Yeah, that would be tough.
Angry at you because their business is all their people are having mental health crises and they're not hitting their goals and they just want to take it out on someone else. You cannot contribute to the community if you are exhausted after giving everything to the corporation. That is the best comment, I think, articulated perfectly. I think that's what I've been trying to say.
Well, thank you, whoever said that.
Yes, Chris has been dropping great comments. So
thank you, Chris.
Yes, I would say that's kind of what I have in terms of ants, right? If the corporation is the colony and each worker gives everything it can to do something for one ant, and then there's no energy left for the rest of the colony, it's going to suffer.
Yeah. So
go ahead. I was just going to say, that's the end of my ant section. I know you've got some stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So I just want to say that, if the corporation is the queen and doesn't give back to the people, so starves the people,
She
then the
doesn't lay
people
eggs
can't,
in our analogy. She just chooses not to lay eggs.
or
And
chooses not to lay eggs. But
yeah,
point being that, you have to give back. Corporations have to give back to the colony, to everybody, not just to shareholders. Like there's this small group of people who benefit from the work of the majority, and that has to uh, return to a healthy balance, which it is not right now, for sure.
yep.
So I just wanted to say a few things about my creative work, because obviously what I do is I create music.
Yes.
I used to write a lot of music for orchestras and musicians and so on and so forth. I'm known as a composer to write music for other people, but mostly I've been doing electronic music since COVID. I've been doing it since I was a teenager, but I've been doing a lot of that lately, and it seems that I've sort of uh, the themes seem to that I think about in daily life with regard to how we're living in the world and how the world is going. Those kind of themes are making their ways into the music that I make with electronic music. And so I just thought it might be interesting for our viewers. Um, they see us as talking heads every time we do our dialogue. But I thought it might be interesting for people to see the connection between some of the activist things we talk about, see it in action, and how I take the ideas of, for example, protecting whales from plastic and so on, which is an issue, and how I take you inside the kind of feeling of my feelings about whales when I think about how they are being um, endangered by plastics, for example. So if we can just run that
You
intro
want
of
to do the orcas first?
the orca whales, and then we can just talk briefly about orca structure, family structure, and so
All
on.
right. So let me change this here, and we're gonna go to orca whales, and we'll play this, and I'll
Just
go
first,
ahead.
yeah, first less than a minute, just whatever, just to get a vibe for
Is
it.
there a particular spot you like that I can skip
Just
through?
right at the opening, and I'll just as we go along, I'll maybe tell you how this is working. So
Okay.
this comes from a live show that I did in July in St. John's, Newfoundland, at the Sound Symposium, and
Yes.
I've basically created a video that kind of represents what the live show would have looked like, and this was the second piece that I played, called Orca Whales.
Okay. I'm ready for it. I listened to a little bit of it. It's pretty neat.
Let's play it. Yeah, that's probably good enough just there.
All right.
Yeah, just at the end there, you heard a little buzzing sound come in.
Here, let's skip forward like a minute. I want them to get like really the feel of this
Okay,
song.
yes, scoot forward a bit. Yeah.
Kind of get now. You kind of got that
Yeah.
feeling of I don't know. It kind of gives you like your hairs on your neck stand up a little bit.
Right. So what's happening at the beginning there? You're seeing the instrument I'm playing. I'm playing two instruments. One's black on the left, one's green on the right, and these are touch plate synthesizers, which only make a noise when you connect the with your fingers. So your fingers are the electricity that makes the connection. There's electrical energy running through your body. So you touch a sound producing plate with one finger, and then you put your other finger on the amplifier, and that's actually what makes a sound. And then I have a video of orcas, an orca pod going across the screen, and they're kind of, I forget, it's called a masking effect, where you can see the instruments underneath. At the beginning, you have actually only just recording of orcas making their very common sort of wailing sound. And then a ship appears, and then I have a kind of rumbling sound that comes in. And so it juxtaposes the rumbling sounds that interrupt the communication systems of orcas and make it harder for them to hunt and get food, and sometimes makes it hard for them to communicate, and sometimes they get hit by the ships, right? So they're underwater, they communicate by making sounds, and the sounds of ships that ships make can interrupt their sound environment that makes it harder for them to exist, basically. So that's my way of channeling my feelings about this. And at the last little clip you played, I've kind of made it into a kind of like cloud of these sounds. I've expanded and made the sounds into a kind of big texture that becomes more like a dream about what this might be about. A dream is the wrong word, but it takes it into another imaginary realm.
I almost think of like a fugue.
Yeah, not like a fugue, because a fugue's fairly well organized, but really just to take you into a mood that is giving you a much more intense feeling than just the representation of the thing. So I'm taking it into another imaginary level. So this is the kind of thing that I do with, especially more recently with these issues. So that entire show that I did at Sound Symposium, the several sections took on the orcas, the gulls, crickets, a field of crickets.
Do you want to do the gulls?
Yeah, we could do a short thing of the gulls. That's actually even more intense, I would say.
Cool. Okay, let me swap this over.
And while you're swapping it over, I'll just keep saying that I also had a section called Ice, and that was not about glaciers. That was about Rene Good. And then I had a section called Glacier Collapse, which was about glaciers collapsing. So this mixture of social justice and environmentalism is kind of a common theme in what I'm doing. Let's play the gulls clip.
How's this? This is a good start? Or
Good. Middle part's good, yeah.
Okay. 2:30? Start there?
Actually, just play about 20 seconds of the opening.
Okay.
Gulls remember. Yeah, gulls have a really good memory for faces. Okay, now forward it.
Here?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
So I've done. Yeah, so that gives you a little brief introduction to it. And so what I do is I imitate the pitches that the gulls make. And in doing so, I make them a little more audible, because when gulls make their sounds, you can't quite grasp what the notes are. So I actually tracked the notes and figured out what they were. And then I created an abstraction out of it. So this little da, dee, da, dee, da, dee, da was kind of what the seagulls were singing. Yeah. And I also used the other synthesizer to create kind of whoop sounds that the seagulls weren't quite making, but I was trying to take it to another place where actually you can go back into history of composers writing music for like orchestras, where they want to imitate nature and take the actual sounds of nature and listen to the notes and transcribe them for instruments. So this is an old thing that composers do, is take the sounds of nature and make them into music. It's just I can do it with electronic means, and it creates quite a different sound than like the Cuckoo Clock Symphony of Haydn, for example.
Yeah. No, I mean, it definitely gives your body a certain feeling. Almost it does. That one in particular really got the hairs on your neck standing up, and it almost kind of gets you a little tingly. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Though, I mean, that's just like, it's so neat. I just think it's really cool.
So what is it doing? What does the musical experience do for people? It awakens their soul feeling about things, right? We have our left brain intellectual kind of way of thinking about stuff, and then we have our right brain intuitive nature that feels things more. And although we need to analyze and figure out how to make things better using our left brain intellectual part of ourselves, we also have to have a feeling about it, about why the heck we would do it in the first place. We have to have a passion for it. We have to have a reason to do it. And that reason comes from our intuitive side, right? And so that's what I do in music, is I try to really encapsulate what that whole feeling is like, that thing that you can't put into words, that thing that motivates you to get up in the morning and go do that thing. It's a feeling, and it's not something that your left brain comes up with. It's something that motivates you from your intuition about things, right?
Yeah.
So I just thought that might be interesting for our audience to see, what do I do in music that's related at all to what we talk about? There it is.
It's these, and I think you're taking this communication, and, we got a couple minutes left. So I'd love for you to kind of share the things you shared with me before about orcas and their language and kind of those kind of things. Because I do think that's really pertinent, because we all kind of in different ways speak different languages, but I think that would be a cool way to wind it down.
So the main thing about orcas, also called killer whales, is that they are matriarchal. The women do everything. They keep the whole pod together. And the guys, just like in the ant colony, the guys, well, they just fertilize and they're done. Once they've done that job, they're done. But the women take care of the society. And you and I both share the notion that women should be taking care of our society more than they are right now.
I agree.
I mean, they're taking care of children and so on and so forth, but the leaders in our society could increasingly become women, and that would not be a bad thing.
Not at all.
Yeah. So that's the main thing. Now, the really interesting thing about orcas is that they exist mainly in the Pacific Northwest, all the way down the coast, down into California and into Mexico. They migrate according to where the food is. And the really interesting thing about their communication is that they all have these sounds that they make that have different purposes, and they have families that are called pods, and each family has their own unique vocabulary of sounds.
So wild.
And these families don't share the same sounds. So when one pod encounters another pod, they know they're both killer whales, but they don't really speak the same language in terms of communication. So when the mother in one pod says, "Hey kids, let's get out of here," they say it in a language that the other pod won't really get. So that's interesting. Now, scientists have studied the sounds that they make. They make three sounds. They make a sound that is a kind of whistling sound, that is the one that we're more used to, that kind of woo sound. And then they make discrete calls that are a little more like chatty. And then they make these click sounds, click, click, click. And those are echolocation sounds that they put into the water because their eyesight's not very good. They use these clicking sounds to echolocate to see if there's prey close at hand or not. But what I found really interesting is the matriarchal society, and the fact that even though they're all whales and they kind of speak the same basic language, their different dialects are such that they barely understand each other from one pod to the next.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the ears. It's interesting. Um, those sounds you hear from the whales, those aren't actually produced by a whistle in the mouth. That comes from their nose. Their nose is uh, it says their vocal cords are not good enough to make those sounds. So the sounds are made by their nasal region that is right near their eyes. So it's actually coming from their nose, those whistles. Go figure. And the ears are just little tiny small openings. So that whole thing about sound making has always been very fascinating for me, because we see orcas on a regular basis here in
Yeah.
Vancouver.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I think talking about how we all communicate differently, um, even though we have, this common factor between us, which is our, humanity, um, is one of those things. I'm a huge proponent of a global community. So,
Right.
hopefully we can get there with discussions like this. But as we kind of come to an end of our hour here, I just want to go ahead and say, make sure that you guys are going to support John. Go and, subscribe to his channel, read his stuff. The kind of work he does is important. It's for those of you in America, the Canadian perspective is valuable. And, talking about social justice, talking about environmentalism, and spreading art is important. So please make sure, whether you're watching the recording here or live with us, if you're not already following John Oliver, the composer, not the comedian, please do so. If
Thank you,
you,
Shane.
yes, and so just a little here for me. I have just a couple of comment here. Hope I'm safe and happy. I am working on being safe and happy. The content can be hard, so I've kind of adjusted. So not doing as many live streams, doing a lot more, analysis, articles, things like that. The occasional live stream. Make sure you check in for Pal and Talk. I do that every Monday, and we do this every Monday just about, and we do this here pretty frequently as well. But anywho, I've got an article coming out this week all about how Trump has pretty much lost the United States to the Pacific. Independent analysis, did all this myself, so make sure you subscribe for that. It's just about ready to go. And if you want to support my work, free, paid, subscribers are really important, regardless. And to help all of us, any creator you support, like, comment, restack, and share these videos, these podcasts, because it's a way to really help us see more people. So thank you guys very much. And John, thank you for being here. This dialogue is always a pleasure. And will you give us the sign off today?
Yeah, the sign off is that keep in touch with Shane. He's doing a lot of really tough stuff, and he's just alluded to having to pull back sometimes, and I'm with you on that, brother, because sometimes I've just had to pull back and go right back into the studio and go into an imaginary world, because the real world can be really tough sometimes.
But I think everybody here, you, me, and all these people here with us, we all really want to see that global community. We all want to see us come together. We want to be more like ants and less like whatever brand of human this is. So we can always change. Go listen to John's music. Have a great day. Go touch some grass, and we'll see you next time, because, of course, the dialogue must continue.
Continue.
Goodbye, everybody.
Ciao.